Hello, hello, everyone. Hello. Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year. Not quite Happy New Year here yet in the UK, but I know some of you, many of you across the world, have already celebrated entering 2026. So, congrats. Hopefully, it is a prosperous year for you, better than the last. And yeah, we are in the closing stages, less than, just over 3.5 hours, less than 4 hours now until we head into 2026. But yeah, welcome everyone. Hope you're good. Cheers. Contrary to what this looks like, this is a Bailey's Espresso Martini. It's a Bailey's Espresso Martini. So, lovely, 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 lovely. So, chilled one for me and the missus tonight. Little one, baby Stuffeyy, is in bed. Ooh. It has been a very busy December for us. A very busy Christmas period. Seeing lots of family. Work has been non-stop for both of us as well. So yeah, it feels like I've had a break, but also not had a break at the same time. And of course, lots of illness in the house as well, which wasn't ideal. So the missus is, she's been, I reckon she's been well for like 3 days throughout the whole of December. And now she's like come down with another rough chesty cough and snotty nose, etc. All that jazz. So, but we're all good. We're all good. So I hope you're well, guys. Hope you're well. So apologies for the lack of post-season content. There was plenty of things that I wanted to do but couldn't get around to because of those reasons, mainly due to being ill and so forth. But I thought let's round off 2025 with my end of season awards. I'd already started putting together this presentation, and I thought it'd be this PowerPoint presentation. I thought it'd be wasteful to not use it. So yeah, hope you are wherever you are. You're sitting down. You can pour yourself a bevy and chill for the next couple of hours or so while we run through this. Have a chat to end the season and welcoming the new year. I will be welcoming the new year offline with just me and the missus. But yeah, happy New Year, everyone. And whether you're watching this back in 2026, hello. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with my awards. Now, these awards, guys, these are purely my awards. If you disagree with them, let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments below afterwards, below this live stream. I've gone back. It's been a very long season. We had 24 race weekends, 30 individual races, 6 sprint races, 24 races throughout the year. And it's been quite difficult to cast my mind back to the very start of the season. And you may have forgotten some of the things that happened earlier on in the season as well. No doubt you've seen a lot of post-season content with people doing their own review of their predictions, etc. and so forth. But I thought let's do a couple of different categories here and do things from my perspective, because of course I did every single watch along this year for every single race and qualifying session apart from one, which was the Singapore Grand Prix, because I missed it because of my daughter's first birthday. And I have a decent enough memory to remember some of the things that maybe you guys don't remember. And I have logic. As always, as we do on this channel, my opinions are based around my own logic. You can disagree with that. That's totally fine. These are totally objective, of course, and objective or subjective. Can't remember which one's the right thing. But at the end of the day, these are my personal awards, and you can let me know if you agree with them or not. But we'll just wait a little bit longer for a couple of male people maybe to filter in. But yes, welcome everyone. I hope you're good, and I hope 2025 has been a good year for you. If it hasn't, yeah, of course, 26, things can start afresh. Oh yeah, chat's supposed to be on permanently, not removing. There we go. So this is what happens when you haven't streamed for a month. Things slip through the cracks, you see. Or maybe it's the espresso martinis. But lots of things to take into it. So I haven't personally, guys, I haven't done too much in relation to 2026 research yet. I know that there's been, before we do start this presentation, I know that there's been some information and some rumours, of course, about the power ratio in relation to the engines from Red Bull and Mercedes. And I still take all of this information that we're receiving through leaks or rumours or whatever in the off-season as I said in my last stream. I said anything that you see in the news, whether it be, even if it's kind of, I think sometimes from reputable sources, I think if you see things that are coming out in the off-season about 2026, is to be taken with a big pinch of salt. Because until these cars actually get to the race circuit and are actually able to put these cars out into the real world, away from the wind tunnel, away from the simulator, we don't know anything that is going to be true. So I would take all of these rumours and all these reports about engine ratios and cars. The latest one is every single car is overweight. I mean, I'd be very surprised if any car does meet the weight ratio. But that's always the case at the start of the weight limit. That's always the start at the end of a brand new regulation set. But take everything that you see online, reporting wise, with a pinch of salt until the cars actually get out on track and you get the information back from the January testing, the private test that is going to happen in Barcelona at the end of January. And then, of course, we get the 2 public tests in Bahrain in February. In the middle of February. That's really when we're going to get proper information and we can start to make our assessments and our assumptions on the season ahead. But right now, I think it's people clutching at straws. It's all third, fourth hand. What's the right word? Fourth hand person news at the end of the day. Like, it's not coming from the horse's mouth. So. Hey Carl, Happy New Year. Yeah, Happy New Year, mate. And welcome everyone. Welcome. So, it is the half-hour mark. Should we get into our session? Should we get into our end of season awards for the F1 2025 season? Let's start off with, of course, probably the one that all of you will be able to guess, but we'll go for it anyway. The best driver of the season. Of course, some of those drivers are not in those same overalls that they started in. This was the image from the first race of the season in Australia. Of course, Liam Lawson there in that Red Bull overalls. How long ago it was. Yuki Tsunoda there in the RB overalls as well. And, of course, no Franco Colapinto there with Jack Doohan in his stead. So, best driver. My nominations for best driver this year for the 2025 season. George Russell. The man who did nothing so often and still found himself on the podium. What a consistent year it has been for George Russell. Arguably his best year ever in F1. And of course, when the opportunity was there, he capitalised, just like Max Verstappen did. He capitalised on when that Mercedes was in the right window to win races. And arguably that was only 2 times this year. And he won both of those races. Canada and Singapore. So thoroughly deserved. And I said all year that he's a top 3 driver of this year. If Oscar Piastri hadn't fallen off as he did, then maybe not. But George Russell, definitely up there for me as one of the top drivers this year. My second nomination is Max Verstappen. Need I say any more? Finished just shy of the championship this year. Ended up with more race wins than both McLaren drivers. More race wins than our eventual World Drivers' Championship, Lando Norris. 8 to 7 wins. That Red Bull, yes, there are things to take into consideration with McLaren tripping up over themselves, of course, and allowing Max back into the fight. But you know what? When you don't have the car underneath you, sometimes you just need to keep applying the pressure. And that's what he did all throughout this season, using his experience of fighting in World Drivers' Championships, whereas neither McLaren driver had. And he was, even at the start of this season, he was a thorn in their side, qualifying on pole position when the McLaren should have comfortably been on pole position. And they didn't allow either of those two drivers and McLaren as a team, Max and Red Bull, to rest. So he is my second nomination. And my third nomination is Lando Norris. Yes, Lando Norris. If it was the Lando Norris that didn't become World Drivers' Champion, and it was the Lando Norris that had continued his run of form in the first part of the season, he wouldn't have been up here. But I do think that a lot of credit needs to be put to Lando Norris in how he came back after the setback of the DNF with the engine failure in Zandvoort. And he was a very, very different driver. He raced smart. He was a confident driver. It was very evident in just his interviews, how he approached them. There was a different air around him. But there's something has been said to him. He's approached things very differently after the summer break. And I'd love to interview him to know what he actually addressed, who he had discussions with, and what he addressed after the summer break, because even when he got to the lead with the closing stages of the season, many thought, well, okay, now he's got the lead, he's now going to falter. But he didn't. He really didn't. And it was only due to his team, of course, with the double disqualification in Vegas and the balls up in the pit strategy when it came to Qatar, that meant Lando had to really fight for that championship in the last race of the season, outside of his own teammates. Really, it should have been wrapped up before Qatar, or wrapped up in Qatar, or at least it should have been 24 odd points between him and only his teammate in the last race of the season. So I do think that he deserves to be in that top three this year. I know many others have said otherwise, and you have to give credit to him as well. He is the first. He's a brand new World Drivers' Champion and the first driver to do so in the last 9 years, because the last driver outside of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen to win the Drivers' Championship was Nico Rosberg in 2016. So, yes, in the last 9 years, only 3 drivers have won titles. Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, who are 2 of the greatest of all time, and now Lando Norris. And he went up against one of those greatest of all time in Max Verstappen. So, yeah, credit where it's due. It could have been a lot more easier for Lando as well. Bit of a sidebar. And Oscar Piastri, if they continue to develop the car. Of course, we're in a unique stage of this season where it was the last year of regulation set. McLaren decided to not develop any further after the summer break, whereas Red Bull did continue that development. But that's the aim of the game with F1. And it made lives a little bit more difficult for the McLaren boys because, as we know with Oscar, he didn't have the best times after the summer break, whereas and Lando didn't have the best of times either, but he did fare much better than Oscar and Max Verstappen. Well, yeah, that just shows how important, especially heading into 2026, that development curve is going to be, and has always been in F1. So yeah, and my winner of Best Driver of 2025, unsurprisingly, shock horror, is Max Verstappen. Yep. Would it be anyone else? Would it be anyone else? No. Look, more race wins than both McLaren drivers. Fully pun intended. He maximised that Red Bull, I think, every opportunity this year. He really did. And he showed the calibre of driver that he is. And he softened up to a lot of his haters this year. A lot of people who never liked Max Verstappen before became Max Verstappen fans this year. And look, while I think Lando is a fully well-deserved World Drivers' Champion, I do think Max Verstappen was the best driver this year. Now, some of you may be thinking, what about drivers further down the field? I think if Alex Albon had continued, I think a bit of a rogue choice, not a rogue choice, but I think if Alex Albon had continued the form that he was on throughout the majority of the season until kind of the last third, where Carlos Sainz took over, I think Alex Albon could have maybe fought for that first place position, or at least been in easily the top 3. But other than that, I don't really see anyone else up and down the grid who had the level of consistency that Max Verstappen had this year. We know about Spain, but he pretty much did get the most out of that Red Bull at every opportunity, and especially in the closing stages of the year. That's what champions do. That's what the greats do, is that they continue to apply the pressure. So Yuki was not my driver. No, Yuki was definitely not. So there we go. Best driver. That's the simplest award, I think, of today. So hope you guys are enjoying this start of this presentation. So the next one, worst driver. Oh, this is where it gets. These are the fun ones. These are the fun ones. So worst driver. Worst driver. Stroll, Andrew. We'll see. We'll see if he's a nomination. So first is Jack Doohan. Very, very short-lived Jack Doohan. Of course, he was on the back foot. I have to give him some leeway that he was on the back foot from the get-go with the announcement of Franco Colapinto. Look, he was always under pressure, and I don't think, barring him maybe finishing in the top 5 every single race that he participated in, I don't think he was ever going to maintain his seat. However, saying that, he didn't help himself, did he? Just, okay, a little bit of leeway with the tricky conditions and spinning the wheels up on the white line when it came in the middle of the track when it came to Australia. Anyone could have done that. We saw Carlos Sainz do it as well. Isaac Hadjar do it. I mean, many drivers, of course, crashed out in Australia. But then there wasn't... He's kind of really... His highlight moment, Jack Doohan, I think, was the crash in Suzuka in practice, not closing the DRS, leaving it open, because he found out that it worked in the simulator. I mean, as a rookie, the first thing that you need to do is keep the car on track. Don't crash the bloody thing. And that's what he did. And, well, he's done that a couple of times. And I think the thing is with Jack as well, and I always do look at rookies, and I look at the rookies and drivers that we've had in the past, Logan Sargent being one of those as well, is that has there ever been a moment or a race, or, yeah, is there even a moment where you go, oh, yeah, I really see why he's in F1. I really see why he deserves to maintain his seat. I don't think there was any of that with the likes of Logan Sargent and drivers who came before him in Williams. And I don't think we saw that at any point in the 6 races from Jack Doohan. There was a couple of times where maybe he looked on the close pace to Gasly. But for the most part, it was comfortable, wasn't it? Stroll was up there. Jack who, Rabbit? I know, Jack who. Jack was very unlucky with his F1 career. I mean, he was on the back foot from the get-go, but he scored 0 points. His teammate showcased that you can score points in that car. And there was too many moments where, I mean, he cost so much. It cost the team so much money as well. It's the last thing that you need to do when, I know obviously you're trying to do, but the DRS thing was unforgivable, really. Second nomination of Worst Driver of the Year is Franco Colapinto. I gave this guy a lot of... I was quite easy on him, to be perfectly honest with you, because I think joining at the stage of the season that he did, no pre-season testing, very limited amount of running in this car to start off with, and he had a very tough run of tracks to start off his career this year in Alpine with Imola, with then Monaco. But as I stated with Jack Doohan and rookies, the one thing that you need to do is just keep the car on track. Keep it on the black stuff. What did Franco do in his first qualifying session? His first qualifying session back in F1. After considering he ended his career, his previous season with Williams with some big crashes. Franco Colapinto binned it. Not a good start. And, well, he should have, at least throughout the duration of this season, while Alpine wasn't a good enough car, I admit that, and he was hampered by the fact Alpine were not really developing this year at all when they finished dead last in the driver standings. In the team standings. Pierre Gasly showcased this year that there was potential for scoring points. There were certain moments this year where the Alpine could have fought for points and scored points. And Franco Colapinto just didn't do that. And he's someone that I rated in Williams. And I think next year, with, of course, the Mercedes engine and Mercedes gearbox, he will have to I mean, he's fortunate that he's got a very, very lucrative amount of backing when it comes to the sponsors, and he's with Alpine for 5 years. He's signed a 5-year contract with them. But I wasn't impressed, and he was in the only car, him and Jack Doohan, that was the only car this year that failed to score a single point on the grid. A single point. So, yeah. How long am I already streaming? Not that long. How long have I been streaming for? 20-odd minutes. 20-odd minutes now. Controversial, but you might suggest Lewis. I'm just going to hide behind my chair while the air clears. Well, my next nomination for worst driver of 2025 is Lewis Hamilton. And I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan. But while I do believe, and I've stated this year, there are a number of reasons that have contributed to his poor performances this year. You cannot look past the fact that it was a terrible year for Lewis Hamilton. It was a terrible year to start his Ferrari career. It started so positively, really, as well, with the second race of the year, winning the sprint race, getting pole there, and of course, but then it was swiftly followed up by the disqualification in the main race in China. But Brazil was a very low moment for him, a track where he's done well at. He's a Brazilian citizen, and I just think, look, he should have at least got up to pace. He did get up to pace a bit more to Leclerc at the end of the year, but even coming from a Lewis fan, this is a season to forget. It really is a season to forget, and he'll be happy to see the back of this regulation set, these big, bulky cars that he's never got on with, and of course, Charles Leclerc will be thinking the same with Ferrari. But yeah, it was not a good start to his Ferrari career. And look, the reason why he is one of the worst performing drivers this year is because, yes, he was in Ferrari. We expect more of Lewis, even as a Lewis fan. And while I can find many excuses for his poor performances this year, it still wasn't good enough. And when I look at his overall finishing position, he finished P6, but he finished nearly 100 points behind Charles Leclerc, his teammate, in the driver's standings. And he only finished 6 points ahead of the rookie, Kimi Antonelli. So, could have been a worse year for him if a couple of other results had gone Kimi Antonelli's way. Some mechanical failures that Kimi had in the middle part of the season as well. Lewis could have finished even worse in the Drivers' Championship. So, yeah. Lewis had a bad first season and Ferrari doesn't look settled in the car. No, and look, he won't care now. He'll be looking to reset. 2026 is a new set of regulations. Car's going to be slightly smaller, narrower, lighter, not as, hopefully a bit more nimble, no ground effect again. So completely different cars. And we could see some drivers who did well with these big bulky cars struggle with the lighter, more nimbler cars when it comes to 2026. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting from a driver's perspective. I think, of course, as much as it's going to be about who can create the fastest car and the most balanced car in 2026, a lot of it is going to be around the driver. It's going to be a lot more emphasis on the drivers as well. There's a lot more that they have to do in the car with the active aero, with the deployments of the varying modes that they've got to use. I need to brush up on that. And of course, the cars as well. The cars are not going to be as planted. It's going to be less grip, supposedly, than what we've got with the ground effect era cars, which were the quickest cars in F1 history. There are no people in the stream on a race weekend. There are 30k. It's because it's New Year's Eve, Belgium. It's because it's New Year's Eve. I don't care about viewers right now. Thank you for everyone who's tuning in, by the way. But ultimately, this is just... I haven't gone live. I haven't done anything throughout this December period, post-season content, because of illness in the Stuffeyy household and busy over Christmas and with work and so forth. So this is purely just for me to get off my chest, my awards, and for you guys to watch back as well. It's the beauty of YouTube is that you can watch these live streams back and yeah, enjoy them whenever you want. So. They're saying that Red Bull and Mercedes have developed 25 horsepower. Is that true? I am taking everything I said at the start of this stream, Shakira. Just touched it on 26 a bit more. Anything that is coming out at the moment in relation to rumours and reports of 2026 regs, I'm taking with a big pinch of salt. Because at the end of the day, we haven't seen these cars yet out on track. So these cars, some of them may end up producing, yes, that extra amount of horsepower, and the FIA may allow it. However, it's no good if they can't create a decent aero package and can't keep the car pointing in a straight line. So, yeah, I would not look too much into the reports. You can cast your eye over them, but until we have that first private test in January, at the end of January, we don't know how these 2026 cars are going to perform on the road surface. The FIA don't know that either. So, but Happy New Year, everyone. Hope you're good. Hope you're good. It's 1 hour to New Year's where you are. Ooh. We've got just over 3 hours, yeah. Just got over 3 hours. So yes, Lewis Hamilton was my third nomination for Worst Driver of the Year. My fourth nomination is Yuki Tsunoda. Yes, Look, we know why. I don't think really too much needs to be said. How it's such a weird season for Yuki, because if he stayed in that RBC, he could have had the best season. He probably would have had the best season he'd ever had in F1. Started the year fighting for top fives in the first 2 races of the season. He should have finished in the top 5 in China if it wasn't for some poor... both races, actually, if it wasn't for poor strategy decisions from RB in both Australia and in China. And unfortunately for him, as many have done before him, he was unable to get on top of that second Red Bull seat. In the last year of this regulation set, Yuki just proved that it is a poison chalice, and now he's without an F1 seat for next year. Doesn't mean his F1 opportunity has come to a complete end. He is reserve driver for Red Bull next year. But, yeah, he's not on the grid. And where if he was in the RB seat still, maybe he would be the driver promoted to Red Bull next season, rather than finding himself on the sidelines. So, a real shame for him, but the results are there, really, aren't they, at the end of the day? They don't lie. Only a couple of point-scoring finishing positions for him. They got better towards the end of the season, but by then it was too little, too late. The Robert Mecky's coming into the team. It's going to be interesting how Red Bull treat that second seat moving forward. I do think the second seat performance is going to be closer to Max Verstappen in the future, as long as however long Max Verstappen stays there for, as they were holding parts back. Because sometimes, holding parts of Max Verstappen's car, so that the second Red Bull seat was 2-3 races behind in development. And of course, with how sharp the development curve is in F1, it's understandable why the likes of Sergio Perez, Liam Lawson and Yuki all struggled, and their performances fell off a cliff, and they were struggling to make it into Q2 and Q3 as often as they did. So, is there Jack Doohan in there? He is, yeah. If you just tuned in, this is the worst driver nomination. We have just gone through Jack Doohan, Franco Colapinto, Lewis Hamilton, yes, Lewis Hamilton, and Yuki Tsunoda. We'd love to see Hulkenberg in a competitive car before he bows out in F1. Yeah, who knows? Audi. Maybe Audi Cook. We don't know. Yuki did his best, but he can't keep up with Red Bull. Yeah, as so many did before him. So, look, for as much as I was not in favour of Liam Lawson being removed from that Red Bull seat after only a couple of races at the start of the season, you have to look back at the overall season, and Liam Lawson probably does himself, and go, you know what, that's a blessing, because I'm now in F1 next year. I can start the season afresh in the team that I feel comfortable with. Let's see what the future holds for us. So yes, Yuki Tsunoda is my fourth nomination, and I have one more nomination for worst driver of the year, Lance Stroll. You were waiting for it. You were waiting for it. Lance Stroll. He was out-qualified by his teammate, Fernando Alonso, in every single race session this year. Okay, barring one, which was the sprint quali in China. But every single race, let's remove the sprints. Every single race, 24 races, main race qualifying sessions, he was out-qualified by Alonso. And, well, credit where it is due for Lance Stroll. He did pick up a decent haul of points in Australia, in Silverstone. Whenever the weather conditions are quite incremental, he does do well, just by keeping it on track, to be honest with you, and just keeping the car pointing forward. But Lance Stroll lost interest this year. He extended his unwanted record of most Q1 exits in F1 history. He is now I think he's now heading into his 10th year. I think we're about to approach 10 years, a decade of Lance Stroll in F1. And, I mean, it's just 8 years too many, isn't it, to be honest with you? So, yeah, Lance Stroll is that last driver there. And the reason also for it is because he's in an Aston Martin that should have done a lot better, especially when you compare to his teammate, Fernando Alonso, who was still at the age of 44, isn't he now? 43, 44. Fernando Alonso, I mean, he should comfortably be beating a driver of that age. Theoretically speaking, on paper he should be, but of course we know Fernando Alonso time doesn't really agree with Fernando Alonso, or Fernando Alonso doesn't agree with time, and he still acts like he's 10 years, 15 years longer. So Lance Stroll should have had his own category, pay to play, suckiest driver, worst. And this is living proof that Daddy's money works a long way, not taking anything away from Lance's hard work. But how would survive at other team? Well, he wouldn't be in another team. His performances haven't been good enough in the years that he's been in F1. He would be gone after probably 2 years max, 3 years, if you're lucky. There's no way that he would have been afforded the opportunity that he's been given in F1 now. They would have looked elsewhere. And if you look at the rookies now this season has given faith to the youngsters, the new blood in F1, that your seat isn't necessarily safe, especially if you're like approaching your 30s and so forth. They're going to be looking at 18, 19, 20-year-olds now, because they can, and we'll get onto the rookies shortly, it proves that they can put in good performances. So, will Stroll get any better in his career? I don't know. I think he's clearly been very disinterested in F1 for quite some time. If he finds himself in a car that can consistently fight for race wins and podiums, which is a very strong possibility next season with them having Adrian Newey and Honda on board, the only team to have a Honda-backed engine, then that whole mindset can change. But whether he's good enough or not, I don't believe he is. But end of the day. Right, so those are my nominations. Who is my worst driver of 2025? I think it's a combined. It's a joint winner. Jack Doohan and Franco Colapinto. And the reason why it is a joint winner is because, for the reason I already stated, that they were in the only car this season that failed to score a single point in the duration of 2025. And I know that Alpine had their issues this year. And I know it wasn't easy for Franco joining when he did. And I know it wasn't easy for Jack Doohan starting this season, knowing he was already pretty much going to lose his seat after 6 races. But they had numerous crashes between them. And there wasn't really any moment throughout this year where I thought, yeah, like, you go, guys. That was a very good performance. You comfortably outperformed Pierre Gasly. And Pierre Gasly still managed to score 22 points this year. So, for that reason, Jack Doohan and Franco Colapinto are my joint winner for worst driver of the year. Jack Colapinto, yeah. So, of course, it's quite difficult sometimes to award these guys who is the worst driver and so forth, because there's a lot of context that has to be taken into consideration with the cars and the situations they put themselves in. But yeah, I think that's it, guys. I think that's basically it. So, quiz time! We have our first quiz question. I have 5 on offer today, and I'd like to thank my beautiful partner, Mrs. Stuffey, Miss Stuffey, for our quiz questions. So, these are just going to be no Googling. I'm just going to read them off the bat to you. Which one shall we start with? Right. Alpine should be looking to sell their team in the coming years. I think they have been. I think they were. So my understanding was that they were going to be selling the team. But then the whole high-tech situation, the fraud and so forth, and their team principal running off into the distance and avoiding authorities, meant that the sale fell through. So, right, first quiz question. Who is the team that had the most crashes this year? Who is the team that had the most crashes this year? Let me know. Let me know. But actually, yeah, sorry. Not number of crashes. I'm going to rephrase that. The team who had the most crashes based on total repair costs this year. Not the single most crashes, but the most in relation to repair costs. We have Ferrari, we have Yuki Tsunoda, Alpine, Sauber. How you doing my work? Thank you, buddy. Maybe when the season starts. Maybe when the season starts, I'll look to see if we need more mods. But I'm very happy with the mod team that we have at the moment. But I appreciate you offering your services to try and keep this this chat as clean and helpful as possible. Stroll, Red Bull. So, in first place is Alpine, with an estimated total crash cost in dollars of $5.34 million. Oof. And I'll tell you what, it's close between the top three. In second place is McLaren, with an estimated $5 million. $5,071,000. And Kicksauber was third with an estimated $5.01 million. Probably mostly, if not all, contributed via Gabriel Bortoleto. I reckon at least more than half of that was due to the crash in Brazil in a sprint race, which was absolutely horrendous. So yeah, Alpine number one. And well, I'm trying to think. I mean, Jack Doohan cost quite a lot. Franco Colapinto did. Did Pierre Gasly crash at all this year? Does anyone know if Pierre Gasly got crashed at all this year? I'm trying to think if he did. So, but we have 4 more questions. 4 more fun questions for you. Gasly crashed in Jeddah, did he? Vegas, did he crash in Vegas, Gasly? Or did he get caught up in the crash? But anywho. So, that was our first question. On to the next award. Best Rookie. And I have some thoughts on this. So, there was a few rookies on the grid this year. Arguably, you could say Liam Lawson was a rookie because it was his first time starting an F1 season. He'd only made a couple of brief appearances. Jack Doohan was most definitely a rookie. We had Kimi Antonelli. We had Isaac Hadjar. We had Ollie Behrman and Gabriel Bortoleto. Our biggest crop of rookies for quite some time. So, who are the nominations for Best Rookie? Well, I've limited it down to 4. And unsurprisingly, Jack Doohan is not in here. Liam Lawson I've excluded because I don't think he... It's a difficult one, really, Liam Lawson, because to some extent I do see him as a rookie, but I also don't see him as a rookie because he's participated in, 11, 10 races or so. Franco Colapinto similarly as well. I don't see as a rookie. Ollie Behrman, Kimi Antonelli, Gabriel Bortoleto, and Isaac Hadjar are my rookies of the year. And looking at it as a whole, every single one of these drivers had high moments this year. They equally had low moments. But I think this has been the best crop of rookies that I can remember since I've been watching F1. Probably since we had Albon, Russell. When did Russell, Lando, and Leclerc join? But even then, I don't think they had the highs in their rookie season that these 4 have had. We had Ollie Behrman have a tremendous run in the closing stages of the season. We had Kimi Antonelli with 2 podiums. Obviously, Brazil was a big highlight for him. Canada, Gabriel Bortoleto in the middle part of the season really excelled. And Isaac Hadjar after the start of the season, who would have thought that he would have ended up with a podium in Zandvoort? And I just think all of these drivers have a bright future ahead of them, and I think F1 is in a good place with just these 4 drivers on the grid heading into the future. So a positive year for the rookies. And my rookie of the year is Isaac Hadjar. Yes, I know Ollie Bearman did make a late surge for this award, Best Rookie of the Year. But Isaac Hadjar, I think, has been the most consistent rookie throughout the year. The amount of Q3 performances this guy made was unbelievable. And also, taking into context the start of his season as well, with that crash on the formation lap at the first corner in Australia. To sit here now and say he'd be the best rookie and that he would have finished... Where did he finish? He finished P12. He finished 10 points ahead of Ollie Bearman. And he only finished 4 points behind... He's finished 5 points behind the top 10 with Fernando Alonso. So he could have finished in the top 10. I think sometimes this year, Isaac Hadjar's performance was hampered by the RB, of course. He could have scored more points. He actually would have finished in the top 10 if he didn't have that puncher in the last lap or penultimate lap in Qatar where he was running P7, P8 at the time, I think it was. I think it was P7. So Isaac's really, I think, poor performances this year. From a driver perspective, I think you can probably count on one hand where he has been generally the driver at fault, I think. Other than that, it's where the RB, the car, has let him down. And I think throughout this season, he's well deserved the Rookie of the Year. Obviously promoted to Red Bull next year. I know many people are concerned, understandably, but I think it's a well-deserved promotion for him. And there's no better time to join Red Bull with Horner's gone, Wheatley's gone, Newey's gone, Marco's gone. Max Verstappen could be going. I mean, it's a brand new team, arguably, and a new ethos and a new approach to that team in a brand new regulation set. And I think it's the best time to join that Red Bull team. So we'll see how he progresses. Ollie Bearman, if he was more consistent at the start of the year, Monaco, he gave himself a 4-point penalty, of course, with that red flag violation. Could have qualified higher and finished higher in Monaco. Silverstone, crashing. He had tremendous pace at Silverstone. Crashed under red flag conditions and got himself a 10-place grid penalty and 4 penalty points when it came to the start of that race. And he ended up finishing outside of the point scoring positions there. I mean, this year, Ollie Bearman will look back and think at how many missed opportunities he had, but that's part of a rookie season. That's part of Ollie Bearman has had what I would say is a typical rookie season. Many highs, many lows, but at the end of the season, he definitely hooked it up, completely outperformed Esteban Ocon, and I can see why some would, with recency bias, give Ollie Bearman the driver or the rookie driver of the season. But I think Isaac Hadjar throughout this season, ignoring that recency bias and looking at the times when RB let him down, and that puncher in Qatar, it could have been so much better for him. So, yeah, Isaac Hadjar, Rookie of the Year. GP might also be leaving Red Bull, if rumours are to be believed as well. Yeah. So, on to our next award. The best team. The best team. Some of you may wonder. Some of you may think, "Oh, this is going to be an easy one. This is going to be an easy one." But we'll see. We'll see. So, best team. We have 4 nominations. We have McLaren, your constructors' champions. They won it in ominous style. More than double the amount of points than second place, finishing Mercedes, who are our second nomination here, beating, of course, Red Bull and Ferrari. Arguably, you could say not too hard, but I think they finally kind of got their act together, Mercedes, in this season. Still, with the poor first couple of seasons in this regulation set, they was always on the back foot, and it makes you wonder if Mercedes did get off to a good start in this regulation set, how would Lewis Hamilton still be there for one? Probably, and the battles that we maybe could have seen between them and Red Bull. So I think we've been a bit devoid of that due to Mercedes' misgivings there. Williams. Williams finishing P5 comfortably in the Constructors' Championship. Massively big progression in the last year of this regulations there. Also, many, myself included, thought that, okay, now they've paused their development and they're focusing fully on 2026 as early as April or May, I believe it was, quite early on in the season, that their performance would dip and that they would fall back, and they've front-loaded their performance this year. But my God, 2 podium finishing positions with Carlos Sainz in the latter stages of the season. Alex Albon was tremendous throughout, apart from the closing stages. So they really paired up very well, and it could have been an even more comfortable 5th place finishing position for them if Alex Albon had scored more points in the closing stages of the year, and vice versa. Carlos Sainz had got on top of that Williams a lot sooner. So a brilliant season for them, and RB as well, because RB, well, they finished 6th. They had 92 points compared to, they finished ahead of Aston Martin, ahead of Haas, and ahead of Kick Sauber. And I think they had a solid year this year. I think they had a very solid year. Williams, given they stopped developing the car pretty early and started focusing on a new set of regs, yeah, McLaren has to be the top team. I got to give it to Williams. The progression this year was worthy of this award. Well, my best team of the year is Williams. That is my best team of the year for the reasons I stated. And some of you will be thinking, how can I not give it to McLaren? How? How can I not give it to McLaren? Well, you're about to find out, and I'm going to give you my reasons why. Because we're about to approach the worst team award as we swiftly move on to our worst team. And well, our nominations for worst team of 2025 are Alpine. Do I need to say any more? One of their cars failed to score a single point this year. Pierre Gasly, I feel so sorry for the man because he did what he could in that team this year. Clearly not focused on this season. More focusing on scaling back their operations, removing, of course, their engine manufacturing obligations and heading to Mercedes gearbox and engines for next season, and just looking to sell the team off, selling assets. So Gasly did a tremendous job in scoring as many points as he did for Alpine, but they are P10 in the Constructors for a reason, and on this worst team of the list year for a reason. Aston Martin finished P7. We all expected more of them, and P7 for them is not good enough. Did they tank this season for a reason to get extra wind tunnel time? I do believe that is the case, and they focused fully all of their resources for 2026. Of course, Adrian Newey heading in, but on paper, you can't sit there and say it was a successful season for Aston Martin and the heights we expect them to achieve. We expect that team really to be the team ahead of Williams to break and challenge those top 4 teams of McLaren, Mercedes, and Red Bull and Ferrari. McLaren, they're on here because while they were a best team nomination and they didn't quite win the best team of the year, the reason they didn't win the best team of the year is because, yes, papaya rules. I cannot give best team of the year to a team that nearly threw away the Drivers' Championship. We should not have ever been in a position where Max Verstappen was within a sniff of winning the Drivers' World Championship this year. The double disqualification, the swapping of positions in Monza, the pit stop strategy balls up in where was it? Qatar. And I'm pretty sure there's been other decisions throughout this year as well. I think there's been a very poorly, arguably the worst managed championship running team in my memory in watching F1. Some of you who've been watching longer could maybe attest to them being the worst run championship winning team. Of course, constructors wise, they wrapped it up quite very early on because Red Bull only had 1 front running car. If they did have 2 front running cars, then I think the constructors would not have been wrapped up as easily as they did. But just winning the constructors doesn't mean that you're the best team of the year. You can still be quite overly poor performing. And I think, yeah, I can't give best team of the year to McLaren for that reason. That's why they're on their worst team of the year. And Ferrari, well, they're Ferrari. Do I need to say any more? Do I need to elaborate on Ferrari this year? Do I need to? I don't think I do. So, my winner of Worst Team of the Year, of course it is. It's Ferrari. It's Ferrari. You knew it was going to be Ferrari. You knew it was going to be Ferrari. Ferrari is still worse. Exactly. I still think it's unforgivable. While Alpine finished last, while McLaren had papaya rules and nearly threw away the Drivers' World Championship, while Aston Martin sacrificed this year for 2026 and didn't give a two hoots about this season, it's Ferrari, man. They finished P4. This is the team. This is the team that challenged McLaren at the end of last season for the Constructors' title. The team heading into this year that I thought would challenge McLaren again for this season. Now, not maybe in Lewis Hamilton's hands, because it was always going to take him time to get up to speed, and arguably he hasn't got up to speed this year. But I thought in Charles Leclerc's hands, he is going to fight those two McLaren boys for the title. And boy, oh boy, was I wrong. They decided to change their concept for the last year of this regulation set. Went to a push rod system. I think it was push rod suspension. Something they haven't done in like 20 years. And they just completely changed the concept of this car, which was fundamentally flawed, could not be run at the height that they wanted to without it being disqualified. There was always compromises that had to be made, and it was just an absolutely terrible and horrendous car, which made Lewis Hamilton's life even more difficult, changing teams and having to adapt to a new environment and culture, etc., and everything that comes with moving to, especially another team that is abroad and a new language and so forth. And they were just poor. They were just poor. And I think even those of you who aren't Ferrari fans sit there and just go, wow, that was bad. And there's sympathy there for the drivers. So, yeah. Totally wrong. They did. Of course, it could have got better for them if they continued to develop. But as we said, heading into a new set of regulations, why bother? Why bother? And all the focus has been on 2026. They also committed a lot of resources to early on in the season. So only small changes were made to that car. But yeah, it was, even in this cost cap era, the platform that they started this season on was fundamentally flawed, and even if they continued to develop with this car, I don't think they would have been able to fix it. So, without dramatically compromising himself for the next year. So, right. So, that is it for Worst Team. It's time for quiz time. It's time for quiz time. And we have another question. So, right. Which team spent the longest time in the pit lane during the whole of this season? Which team spent the longest time in the pit lane during the whole duration of 2025 season? Let me know in the chat, guys. No Googling. No Googling. Ferrari are all farming for 2026, but I think they were much different. They were in P4, P5, and still, maybe. McLaren, Williams, Haas, Yuki's team. Do 10-second penalties count? Yep, this is whole duration in the pit lane. Whole duration in the pit lane. Stake. Mercedes. Okay. Well, your answer, those of you that said Williams, are wrong. Those of you who said Mercedes are wrong. Those of you who said Stake are wrong. Stake was my guess. Stake was my guess, actually. But the answer is, for those of you who said Haas, you are correct. Well done. Well done. Yes, Haas, they were in the pit lane for the longest this year. They had a staggering 29-second pit stop during the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix and a 28.5-second pit stop a week later in Monaco. They had significant blunders this year. So, not entirely sure exactly. It was the overall cumulative times Haas were there. I don't know the average for them. But yes, Haas were longest. So, yeah, not particularly great for the Haas team. Echoing back to when they had those issues in their first year in F1, if you remember. So, right. Should we head on to our next nomination? Let's go. Best race. Now, remember, it's been a very long season. And these are just from my memory. If you disagree, that's fine. I may run a poll for this one. I may run a poll because I've run out of a drink. And I was running back. Through the races that we've had this year. And it's interesting to reflect. And I did struggle a little bit. I did struggle. And even then, I feel like these races, we've had better. We've had a lot better. And I think this year did struggle. A lot of the races were won from the first corner. And we'll get onto the nominations in a second. But I think it was a bit of a struggle this year to name the best race. I do think if we didn't have a close championship battle like we did at the end, I think this season will be looked back on as one of the worst seasons in F1 for racing. Now, I did see the stats come out at the end of the season of how many overtakes there were. Apparently, Abu Dhabi had the most overtakes in the season, which was, I don't know, I don't remember that being that many overtakes, but that just says it, doesn't it? Just really, but the amount of overtakes you have doesn't necessarily mean that it equates to a good race. So these are mine from what I can remember, and we're going to get there. Hey, Andy, you can see it. What's been the worst take of the night so far? I don't think there's been any bad takes at the moment. So, the first nomination for best race of 2025 is taking it all the way back to the very first race, the opener, Australian Grand Prix. This was a good race. What a season opener. And Australia, Melbourne Park, never provides good racing. It's always a bit of a dire race, to be honest with you. There's a reason. If you're having to add 4 DRS zones on a racetrack, it doesn't provide great racing, does it? Let's be honest. But this was a spectacular opener, I agree, Speedbird, because we had the incremental weather conditions. We had the offs from both McLaren drivers. We had Max Verstappen pushing the McLarens at the start of the race until inevitably his tyres fell off. And then, of course, Oscar Piastri having to fight his way back through some great overtakes in the closing stages of the race. Kimi Antonelli's performance, rookie race in F1, first ever race in F1, starting, where did he start? 16th, I can't remember if it was, and finishing 4th place, I think it was, or 5th place, something ridiculous like that. Mistakes aplenty, and it was just drama, safety cars, offs, crashes, exactly what you want from a season opener, to be honest with you, other than like a will-to-will battle for the win. And yeah, the most exciting Australian Grand Prix that I can vividly remember. So those of you who are new to F1, Melbourne Park never provides really great racing. It's always a bit... you're excited because for so long it was the first race of the season. But yeah, when you look at it as an actual racing perspective, it's always pretty a dire race. But yeah, this was a spectacular opener, and I think it has to go down as one of my nominations for race of the season. Albon P5, yeah, Albon is P5. So Piastri overtake around Hamilton, yep. So there was lots of moments. Lando had his moments as well. So both McLarens went off. So yeah, that's my first nomination. My second nomination, and I'll get the poll up in a second, guys, is the Bahrain Grand Prix. I love this circuit. I really do. And this race, while of course Oscar Piastri dominated this race and drove off into the distance, this race sticks out in my memory because we had wheel-to-wheel racing like throughout this race. We had drivers on at the end of the race. In the second half of the race, they were on all three different compounds of tyres. We had a third of the drivers on the hards, third of the drivers on the mediums, third of the drivers on the softs, and it provided great wheel-to-wheel racing. And yes, I would have liked to, as always, to see a battle for the race win, but we saw so much good racing up and down the field. We saw collisions, and George Russell's transponder, no one knew where he was out on circuit. His team didn't know where he was out on circuit, and he was being chased down upon by Charles Leclerc, I think it was, for P2. So what a great race it was. Bahrain, I still stand by this. Switch Bahrain and Abu Dhabi. Have Bahrain as the finale of the F1 season and have Abu Dhabi earlier on in the season, because Bahrain would provide us better finales to an F1 season than Abu Dhabi ever can. Bahrain was solid, not amazing. I think it was amazing in the context of this regulation set and this season, though. Like, I remember vividly coming away from the Bahrain Grand Prix and being like, that was a great race to commentate on. That was a great race to go back and watch the highlights. And it had great racing, and that's what we watch F1 for. My third nomination for Best Race of 2025 is the Austrian Grand Prix. Red Bull Ring. I love this circuit. I love racing it in the sim. And I think, like Silverstone, every single year that we come here, no matter the regulation set, the nature of the circuit, the fact that the DRS has been so powerful here. Of course, we're not going to have DRS anymore. But because of that, it's one of the few tracks in this DRS era regulation set that we've had, of course, the prior regulations as well, where it's difficult for the lead driver to get away. You need a significant advantage to be able to pull out a gap. And it allows slower cars and drivers to stay within those up ahead. And it just provides great racing. We saw the first time the two McLaren drivers go properly wheel-to-wheel, exchanging positions. Piastri nearly collided into the back of Lando Norris. We saw, of course, the first lap dramatic collision. Oh, no, back. There's a spoiler. British Grand Prix is another nomination. We saw the first lap collision with Kimi Antonelli bringing out that safety car. Like, it was just... It's a great circuit. It's a great circuit, and I think it delivers year on year, and it's one of those, that swing of, yes, Austrian Grand Prix, Silverstone. I still like Spa, but of course Spa doesn't necessarily provide now, or hasn't provided recently. Like, that swing in the middle of the year is just lovely. It's just lovely. So, Bahrain is one of the rare circuits that delivers across all regulation sets. Exactly. So, that is my third nomination, and you just saw the fourth nomination is, understandably, the British Grand Prix. Who can forget Nico Hülkenberg, his first ever podium in F1, but the changeable conditions that we saw, I mean, Silverstone, every single year just delivers, and it's not British bias at all. If you're a fan of F1, it's just a great racing circuit. It just really is, and the qualifying was brilliant. The whole weekend is brilliant. But the qualifying was brilliant with Max Verstappen getting pole position, and then, of course, we had the shenanigans with the safety car, Oscar Piastri getting that penalty, then Max spinning under the safety car restart, and then Lando taking the lead, and then we had obviously making the pit stops, and so it was unbelievable. Such a great race, and that is the beauty of Silverstone, where if it's hot, cold, wet, dry, like, it just always provides a banger, and it definitely did this year. So, and well, let's skip. That's my last nomination. So we had the Australian Grand Prix, and I'm just going to make myself another drink while you guys vote. Australian Grand Prix. What do we say? Australian Grand Prix. A Bahrain GP. We had the Austrian GP. And then we had the British GP. And I will say, before we get onto our worst one and we announce the winner here, you may be wondering why there are no other races in the latter half of the season. I mean, I just can't pinpoint any race in the second half of the season that really stuck in my mind as a banger. I don't think we really had any. We had moments which, of course, were influential to the overall Drivers' Championship, but the actual races themselves, the only one that kind of sticks out for me is Mexico because of the amount of penalties that were dished out. But even then, it wasn't particularly like a great race. That's just because there was too many shenanigans at play and drivers taking liberties with track limits and so forth. So, yeah. I am kind of glad to see the back of these regulation sets, to be honest with you, because I think we are going to get much better racing on more traditional race circuits in the next year. But get your votes in, guys, of what you think is the best race of the year. I'm just quickly going to make a top-up of a drink, and we'll be back to find out who my winner is. And then on to the worst race of the year. I'm back. Right. Best race of the year. "59% of you think British Grand Prix, 25% are the Bahrain Grand Prix, 8% Australian, and 8% the Austrian." Well, what is my best race of the year? It is, of course, the British Grand Prix. Yeah, the British Grand Prix. It was close, really, between this and the Bahrain. I really, really did enjoy the Bahrain. But the British Grand Prix, as I've touched upon, it delivered. The changeable conditions, Hulkenberg's podium, just what happened at the front as well, and the crashes that we had, and the different strategy options. It was just so much to keep an eye on, and yeah, it just provides every single year, Silverstone. So, British bias wins again, Andy. So yes, that is my winner for the best race of 2025 was the British Grand Prix. But I do think it was quite slim pickings, to be honest with you. I do think it was quite slim pickings. £600 cheapest ticket this year, though, Rabbit. I know. I definitely won't be going to the British Grand Prix unless it's through my day job, where someone takes me. Yeah, but I won't be paying off my own accord. I'll be doing the wash along, of course. Worst race of the year. Now, this is the one where there were a lot of options. There were a lot. I think I picked 5, if memory serves me correctly. So let's have a look at my worst race of the year. Shock, horror, Monaco. Need I say any more? I appreciate them trying something different, and I do think it was more interesting to see the two-stop strategy, a mandatory two-stop strategy play out. But when you go to a track where you still physically cannot overtake, it doesn't matter what you do. It's going to be not an interesting race. So, yeah. Monaco, always up there. I still think it has a place on the calendar. Controversial take. And I've discussed this with numerous people. The reason Monaco now isn't seen as special anymore and why people want it off the calendar is because we unfortunately are inundated now with too many street circuits. Monaco used to be kind of the creme de la creme of street circuits. It's always been there since, what was it, like 1950s, 1960s, like pretty much the inception of F1. And I still like the whole buzz of going to Monaco and qualifying is great, but at the end of the day, when you dilute the product with more street circuits, the F1 car on a street circuit and racing so close to the walls isn't special anymore. It's not special. And when we go to street circuits where overtaking is possible, then you go to Monaco, and you can't overtake, it's not special at all. So will Monaco cope with the size of the cars? Just needs a little tweak in the layout. Look, it's got to the point now where the layout it definitely needs to be changed. There needs to be a longer run out of the tunnel, right up into that chicane. Look, the cars need less grip. The cars are too big. They release too much dirty air, even like some Monaco, and they have too much grip. So there's no mistakes made. There's nowhere where a driver has an opportunity at a run in these cars. So. Will McLaren be as dominant as they were last season? I don't think so. I mean, possibly. I'm not going to say don't think so. I'm just going to say possibly because I don't know. Next year, anyone could be dominant. It really is up for grabs next year. So, my next one is the Saudi GP. Tell me after the first corner where Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen went side by side, tell me what else happened in this race. I could not tell you what else happened in this race. It was boring. And Saudi is another track where there's not a hard enough amount of braking zones. It has a silly first corner. And we saw this year that it's great to see these cars go so close to the walls, just like Monaco, as fast as they do. Through these fast downforce sections, and you see the peak performance of what an F1 car can provide. But when it comes to racing, it's not a good circuit, and we need that Riyadh circuit sooner rather than later, I think. I mean, look, the new regs, there is some of these tracks that I'm naming now could provide us better racing next year, and I hope they do. But yeah, not a great one. Next nomination for worst race of the year is the Belgium Grand Prix. Pains me to say it because I loved Spa. I love it. But it was boring. It was so boring. And there were hardly any overtakes this year. I think it was when I saw that list of the most amount of overtakes made this year. The Spa, I think, was at the bottom. I think it was towards the bottom. It was definitely I think it was in the bottom 5. And the problem is, once again, the cars. It is the cars once again, because they throw off too much dirty air, even heading into turn 1, which is a tight right-hander. These drivers are struggling to get the level of grip required, where they are then full throttle and have DRS all the way from the exit of turn 1 through Eau Rouge, down the Kemmel Straight into Lake Coombe. How they are still unable to overtake and get enough traction through there is unbelievable. Now, I do think the FIA has blame to be afforded to them here, because the DRS was not long enough. They did the same thing at Qatar as well. The DRS wasn't long enough, and they should have, just like they saw in the sprint race at Qatar and at Spa, they should have seen that the DRS wasn't long enough, and they need longer DRS zones. And they have the ability to change that from one session to another, and they decided against that. They left it as it is, and it meant that we saw drivers unable to overtake at Spa, which is just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And it just shows how important DRS became in these iterations of these cars, and also the dirty air as well. But yeah, it was a boring race, unfortunately, for us. And it pains me to say it because Spa should provide the best racing. It really should. Spa is a track. One, it's on full throttle for 70% of the time. It has plenty of overtaking opportunities. Like, we should see multiple overtakes and side-by-side action down into the end of the Kemmel Straight into Lake Coombe. We should see overtakes down into... not into No Name, the corner before No Name. Sorry, I can't remember what it is. Even Brave sends down into Puon, especially into the bus stop, and we don't because the ground effects era, unfortunately, has provided cars that provide now too much dirty air, and the lead car has too much grip. Simple as. So hopefully, yeah, the new regs do provide it. So Belgium, unfortunately, was there. Pains me to say it. Next one is the Japanese Grand Prix. I mean, I love Suzuka. I absolutely love Suzuka, but wow, this was the procession of all processions. And I know that the McLarens did stay on the back of Max throughout this race, but there was at no point that Max looked like he was ever going to be overtaken. The resurfacing that they had in the first sector, where all of the load is on the tyres, the center S's, meant that the tyres just lasted an age. We had no degradation at all. Similar, really, to what we saw at Spa. Of course, Spa as well. I forgot to mention about Spa. The waiting of the track to dry out, as it did, meant that we ended up with a boring one-stop race. That was also the FIA's fault as well. But the Japanese Grand Prix was just... I mean, great qualifying lap from Max Verstappen. And this race really did showcase that if you have track position this year and you lead into the first corner, it is going to be so difficult to overtake this year. And we saw that as a theme throughout the whole of this year. So, I could have put... This is it. There's only 4 options. I could have put more. I really could have put more. I could have put Qatar. The only reason I didn't put Qatar is because we had the strategy balls up by McLaren, which made things interesting. I mean, there's a whole host of tracks here that you probably could have added. Which is a shame. And I do think that really the close championship battle that we had this year did paper over the cracks of really this being a bit of a poor season for interesting races. Sorry, I'm having to go back to see what my... so it was Monaco. It was Saudi. It was Belgium. It was Japanese. There you go. Let me know what your worst race of the year is. We have Monaco, Saudi, Belgium, and Japan. But I think looking at the races this year, you also could have had... Oh, what else could you have had? You also probably could have put China in there. You could have put... I think Monza was quite boring. You could have had Monza as well. You could have had Singapore definitely could have been up there. The only reason why I didn't include some of these tracks is because I think we had moments which would make it interesting, at least. Whereas some of these didn't have moments at all. Vegas was quite boring. Qatar was boring. Like, there was quite a few this year, really. Dutch Grand Prix. What happened in the Dutch Grand Prix? Maybe. I don't know. I think the Dutch Grand Prix still had a little bit more going for it, though, than the options that I've just put out here. But Qatar should definitely not be on the calendar. And they should be making... I mean, ultimately, they should be making more... Qatar has the money to provide better. Qatar has the money to provide a much better race circuit, at least a purpose-built race circuit for 4 wheels and not 2, because that is what that circuit is for. It's for motorbike racing. So Hey JT, happy early new year. Yeah, happy early new year, mates. Hope you're good. So, my worst race of the year is the Belgium Grand Prix. I know, shock horror, some of you will think Monaco, but I really did come away from the Belgian Grand Prix being sad. Really sad. I think with Monaco, we expect it. And I still think the shenanigans at play with the two-stop strategy at Monaco made it the better Monaco Grand Prix, the best Monaco Grand Prix we've seen in some time. But the Belgian Grand Prix, I genuinely came away from that sad. And I don't ever want to feel that way after watching a race. And I hope that that is the case, that moving forward, the Belgian Grand Prix, of course, it goes on rotation after next year. I really hope that the new regs improve this. And I hope with the whole new management system that we get better racing, because this circuit is set up to be a great race circuit for racing. And unfortunately, we have been devoid of that in previous years. Yeah, agreed, JT. Yeah, we touched about the DRS as well. The DRS should have been a lot longer. They should have seen that after the sprint race and extended it, just like in Qatar as well. But they decided against it. So, yeah, really, really felt down on that. It was between this, actually, and Japan, because I had similar feelings coming away from Suzuka, just feeling like this track deserves so much better. So much better. And yeah, those two, Japan is a close second, a very close second. And you guys, well, unsurprisingly, you went Monaco. I totally get it. I totally get it. But I go into Monaco expecting it to be like that. Whereas Japan and Spa, I have more hope for better races. And yeah, so right, that is my worst race of the season. Quiz time. Another question, guys. Another question. So, I thank the missus for these ones. What's my next question? So, here we go. Which team... And I'm going to run a poll here. I'm going to run a poll. I'm going to type it in here first. Hang on. Bear with me. Which team made the most overtakes in 2025? One of these four is the correct answer. Is it Stake F1? Is it Racing Bulls? Is it Williams, or is it Haas? Get your votes in the poll now. Which team made the most overtakes in 2025? It's not one of the top teams, of course, because they only really had themselves to deal with. So, of course, there were lots of overtakes in the midfield this year. Fair play to the racing in the midfield. Please pass out thanks to Mrs. Stuffeyy for the questions. I will do. I will do. Dutch Grand Prix is off the map. Yeah, Dutch Grand Prix is gone. Well, after next year, it's gone. So, can't go backwards when you start last. True, JT, true. So, it's very close. I'll let a few more of you get your votes in. Get your votes in, guys. Which team made the most overtakes in 2025? And I'll tell you what, we'll do a driver one as well. We'll do a driver one. Okay, right in the chat. We'll do now. We'll do now. Okay, so which team? And I'll let you guys know the answer. So I'm going to end the vote. So just remember who you went. Which team made the most overtakes in 2025? 25% is Stake. 17% is Racing Bulls. 33% Williams. 25% Haas. Okay. Actually, we're not going to do another vote. So, driver. I'm going to end the poll. the team that made the most overtakes in 2025 was Haas, with, collectively, they achieved, I don't actually know how many they achieved overall, but I know that Ollie Bearman led all drivers with the most overtakes in 2025 with 128 overtakes. Ollie Bearman. In P2 was Alex Albon, who was second with the most amount of overtakes in 2025. Lewis Hamilton was fourth in overtakes this year. I don't know who was third, but was fourth with 107 overtakes this year, Lewis Hamilton. That says a lot, really, that he has a lot of overtakes this year, because it just shows how often he started in the mid-pack in that Ferrari, doesn't it, really? So, yeah, Ollie Bearman, 128 overtakes this year. Alex Albon second. Haas had the most. Of course, Esteban Ocon had a very good start to this season as well, but just couldn't really follow it up in the second half. So, yes, that is our third quiz question of today. We still have two more, so stay tuned for those. So, now on to the interesting ones. These are the ones I imagine we're all going to have difference of opinions on. Now remember, there's been a lot of racing this year. 30 individual races, 6 sprints, 24 races overall. Main races. It's been very difficult to single out particular driver performances. So these are the ones that me personally have stuck out to me, and they're the ones that kind of came to the forefront of my mind when I was putting this category together and these nominations together. So we, of course, will have worst single driver performance as well, so stay tuned for that. There's a few. So if you disagree with me, tough crap at the end of the day. But let me know in the comments below and in chat whether you agree or if you have others that maybe I have forgotten about. So I've tried to limit this down to 4. I think this is 4 nominations, if memory serves me correctly. So, best single driver performance of this year. The first nomination is to that man, Ollie Bearman, who has the most overtakes of 2025 of 128. Is his performance at the Mexico Grand Prix. This is one that stuck out to me instantly, because he only lost 1 position on track that whole race, and that was to Max Verstappen, who stayed out on a 1-stop compared to Ollie, who stayed on a 2-stop. Ollie started in that race. Ollie Bearman started. He started 10th, Ollie Bearman, in that race. And he started 9th. He qualified 10th and started 9th due to a penalty to Carlos Sainz, I think it was. So when it came to the race, he overtook both the Mercedes drivers, Kimi Antonelli and George Russell. He got ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Of course, we know that he had penalty and so forth. But he held off Oscar Piastri, had better pace than Oscar Piastri in it. He overtook Max Verstappen with a ballsy move when he was fighting Lewis Hamilton, and held off Max Verstappen as well. He had pure pace in that Haas, and I think this is one of the best performances all year. And I do think this performance is better than Isaac Hadjar's. While Isaac Hadjar, I think, was best rookie throughout the year, I think this performance is why Ollie Bearman is so highly rated, why he will be Ferrari's future driver when Hamilton eventually retires, or maybe even Charles Leclerc moves off before Lewis Hamilton. I think Ollie ended this season on a massive high, and this was like in the middle of a great run of performances for him, and he put Esteban Ocon to shame. He really did. Now, I do have to be a little bit more fair to Esteban Ocon, because there were numerous times this season where they'd split the setup choices, Haas, and Ollie ended up kind of on the better side of the setup choice than Ocon, because Ocon was the more experienced driver. So I think Ollie in some instances took the less risky setup choice, and Ocon decided that. But I think, look, what a performance from him. And yeah, it's one that sticks out instantly in my memory. So, my second nomination. How can it not? How can you not put Nico Hülkenberg? From 19th on the grid and finishing P3. Now, some of you, of course, will go, well, the treacherous conditions meant that he gained freebies. Look, what is severely overlooked in this performance by Nico Hülkenberg is that he made the decision himself to stay out and not pit when everyone else did. He made the important calls correct that day. And not only that, he overtook in treacherous conditions drivers who were in quicker cars, more struggling than him, and held off a charging Lewis Hamilton in those conditions when he damn well would have known in his head he was in a podium finishing position. And he had none other than Lewis Hamilton, all-time record winner at Silverstone race circuit, chasing him down in Ferrari, hunting for his first podium in Ferrari. I mean, at the British Grand Prix. What a performance from him, and I think it's one that I am still gutted that he got a Lego trophy. I really am. I know he said that, oh yes, his daughter would love it, but I still think deep down he would have liked a proper piece of silverware, bronzeware, something that is a little bit more proper on his mantelpiece, because I think he fully deserves it. And yeah, it's a proper feel-good moment of this season. So, my next nomination is Lando Norris at the Brazilian Grand Prix. I think this was a championship-winning drive for Lando Norris. And the reason why this performance sticks out for me is because not just the sprint race, but the race itself. He just come off the back of Mexico, and I could have included Mexico because that was dominant. Mexico was dominant, but this was more impressive for me because of how the weekend unfolded with the changeable conditions, with the sprint race, the 2 qualifying sessions. He qualified on pole in both of them, one from lights out to finish in the sprint race. Same thing in the race itself, and he would have no doubt have had memories of last year where his championship push, if you can call it a push last year, eventually came to an end. And it was a terrible race for him, and Max Verstappen got all the plaudits, rightfully so, from going from 17th to 1st. I mean, he tried to do that again this time around. But it was a championship-winning drive, and this was a drive where anyone I think who had any doubts about his mentality were put to bed. And I think it was one that just showed that this is a different Lando Norris this year, and that Brazil is always so important, not just because of the sprint race format, but I think the race itself and where it's positioned in the calendar, it's always an important race to win, and it's always has an influential role in how the championship plays out come the end of the season. And I think this was one of those that just went, yeah, that is your World Drivers' Champion for this year. Now, of course, McLaren tried to make it a lot more difficult for him, but it should have been very, very easy for him from here on out to secure his World Championship. But McLaren obviously had other ideas. So, yeah, that's a performance that really stuck out for me. Hey, TC, Happy New Year. Yep, thank you, buddy. Hope you're well. The next nomination, Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen, he decided to do his own last to first challenge, didn't he? He fell a bit short, but could he have won it? And the reason why this is here, and yes, I do understand he completely changed the setup of the car. This was the perfect race car, because it wasn't limited by Parc Ferme. It had a brand new spicy engine in the back of it. And we always know that at Brazil, with the second highest altitude that you attend this year, a brand new spicy engine in the back does dramatically help. But after the difficulties that he'd had all weekend, to go and do what he did was vintage Max Verstappen. Vintage Max Verstappen. And it won't go down, of course, as one of obviously as good as what he did the previous year in the wet conditions, where he won from 17th. But it'll definitely go down there as one of his best, and definitely I think the best of his season. I really do. I think it was the best of his season. Of course, he won 8 times this year, but I think that was better than any win that he had this year. And I think also it was so important for him to try and keep his championship hopes alive, and he could have maybe won the race if he'd stayed out and held up Lando. Who knows what could have happened? Was the second pit stop necessary? I don't know. Maybe Red Bull thought a P3 is good enough, considering where he started from the pit lane. But yeah, a brilliant, absolutely brilliant drive. So, who is my single best driver performance of the year? It's Nico Hülkenberg for me. You can disagree all you like. That's absolutely fine. But I just think 19th to 3rd in a stake F1 in those conditions, with that amount of pressure on him, knowing he'd never scored a podium before, being hunted down by Lewis Hamilton, making the right strategy calls when he did. It wasn't his team, it was him. If you go back and listen to the radio, he fought back against the decision of his engineer, and he made important overtakes when he did. And I can see why. I think any of those nominations I had there could easily have won, but he is my single best driver performance of the year. I think there are some honourable mentions this year, of course. Carlos Sainz, his 2 podiums, the podium in Baku. You can say, of course, some of the wins that Max had. Imola, one of them. You can also say Oscar Piastri had, at the earliest part of the season, some brilliant races as well. Bahrain being one of them that comes to mind. Charles Leclerc had some great races. Hadjar's podium. Bortoleto P6. Alonso P5. I think a lot of drivers had a lot of highs this year, or at least had pinpointed some highs. But these are the ones that really kind of stuck out to me. And yeah, Hülkenberg comes out on top. Now on to the interesting one. The spicy one. Worst single driver performance. We'd be here all day, I think, if I listed out every single worst driver performance of the year. There are some honourable mentions for sure, and we'll get to those. But yeah, these are the ones. I think I've got 5, and these are the ones that stuck out to me. Remember, this is what all these nominations are for, guys. All these awards are my own awards, my own nominations, the ones that stuck out to me from this year. Max Verstappen, the Spanish Grand Prix. I stand by this. He should have been disqualified from this race. In no circumstances what he did, which he has since come out and admitted that it was a rush of blood and that he shouldn't have done what he did, driving purposely into George. I think what up until that point was actually a very good race for him. He was having a very good race in a car that was not good enough to win, completely outperformed by the McLarens. And yes, the team did balls up his strategy, put him onto the hard compound tyres. They should have put him on new softs. It would have been much better for him. But look, up until that point, he was having a tremendous race and was limiting the damage that he had compared to the McLarens at a track that the Red Bull clearly was not at the races. But what he did there is just unacceptable, and he should not have got a 10-second time penalty. He should have got a disqualification from that race, because in no circumstances what he did acceptable. And the FIA, they ballsed that up, and they were too scared. They were too scared to penalise the reigning world champion, but I think it would have set a good precedent, and it also would have done good for Max. Of course, he's had reflection on that moment, thankfully, but I think also in that time as well, it would have, I mean, it's very much so where Max could still be at this point sitting there going, he hasn't, but he could be sitting there going, I did nothing wrong in that moment. I did nothing wrong. And it would have set a good example to all of the drivers out on the grid and up-and-coming drivers that what he did, using your car, driving it purposely into another competitor's car, is unacceptable. So, yeah, that's why that goes down as one of the worst performances of this year. Next nomination is Oscar Piastri, Baku. I mean, arguably when the wheels fell off of his drivers' championship contention, where he then went on a run of 8 races without finishing on the podium. I mean, crashed in qualifying, finished, had a full start, and then crashed like not even halfway around the lap later. I mean, an absolutely terrible race for him, and one that he will look back on and just think, even if I just outscored my own teammate. Because the McLaren wasn't quick that weekend. It undoubtedly wasn't. And he could have maybe finished just behind his teammate, or even finished ahead of his teammate in that race. But to not finish, and in the manner in which it did, was, absolutely shocking. And arguably where you could say you pinpoint, sometimes it's difficult to pinpoint moments where they particularly lost the championship, and you could say it's here for Oscar. Next is Kimi Antonelli at the Austrian Grand Prix. I mean, this was just typical rookie mistake, wasn't it? Typical rookie mistake, and took out Max Verstappen. Lucky he didn't take out more drivers. I don't think I really need to say much more than that. And he should have known better, to be honest with you. He should have known so much better. Next, Lewis Hamilton at Brazilian Grand Prix. I mean, arguably just sat back as a Lewis Hamilton fan thinking, this just sums up your year at Ferrari. This just sums up your year in Ferrari, because you made a poor start at a track that you go really well at. You made a poor start, lost positions, and then you ran into the back of Franco Colapinto, it was, down the straight. And he stayed out there, a double DNF eventually for Ferrari. Obviously, it wasn't Charles's fault, but I just think it was such a poor performance for him, but just kind of was a culmination of the poor year that he's had. Next up, it's Gabriel Bortoleto in Vegas. I could have put Brazil. Very easily could have put Brazil, because he went out on the first lap. Of course, he crashed in the sprint race, and he went out on the first lap trying to overtake Stroll at Brazil, which he was also at fault for, Bortoleto. But this was like Kimi Antonelli's. Like, what was he doing? What was he doing? Just playing bowling. And I think this doesn't... I mean, obviously there's rookie mistakes, but I think for him to make as many mistakes as he did two race weekends in a row was poor. Very poor by him. And rounded off a very poor into his season. So my winner of worst single driver performance of the year is Oscar Piastri. The Azerbaijan Grand Prix, as we've touched upon, it is undoubtedly the moment where the wheels fell off for him. It started a terrible run for him. And you could say pinpoints where he lost the World Drivers' Championship. There are some honourable mentions, of course. I could mention some of Jack Doohan's. I could mention some of Liam Lawson's performances at the start of the year in the Red Bull. I could mention any one of kind of Colapinto's performances where he finished down towards the bottom. Charles Leclerc had a couple as well. Lando Norris had a few. Don't worry, I did initially have Lando Norris's Canada Grand Prix, but then I went through some of the drivers and thought, no, they've had worse performances. So yeah, Stroll of course had some, Fernando Alonso even. I mean, every driver this year has had some shocking performances. I think Verstappen. I was close to picking Verstappen purely on the merit of just using his car to drive into another, but I think Oscar Piastri's was the false crashing in qualifying, the full start, and then crashing only a few corners later was just like, that's so bad. Go on, Belgium. What would you like to ask? Is Max moved to Mercedes? Not right now, no. Maybe in 2027. Right. Quiz time. Another question, guys. Another question. So, what is the next question? Right. No options this time. Well, no options. You guys just have to type it in the chat. So, what was the shortest race of this year? Duration-wise, time-wise. What was the shortest race this year? And what was the longest race this year? By duration. By time. This isn't laps. This is the time. So this can mean, of course, though, think of the races that had stoppages and safety cars and things like that. Let me know. Those you're all thinking. Monaco was the shortest. Good answer. That's a good answer. Of course, it's arguably I think it is the shortest track on the calendar, isn't it? Monaco shortest, Belgium longest, Monaco shortest, Monza and Spa, Monza shortest, longest probably Singapore. That's a good guess as well. Yeah, that's sometimes hit the actual time limit, isn't it? I'm going to put you guys from lights out to checkered flag. From lights out to checkered flag. Monza, Vegas, shortest Austria, longest Spa. Well, I'm going to put you guys out of your misery. The shortest full-length race by duration, for those that you said Monza, are correct. Yes, the Italian Grand Prix was 1 hour, 13 minutes and 24 seconds. Of course, the fastest race circuit on the calendar, Temple of Speed. And the longest race, those of you that said Spa were correct. Spa is the longest race on the calendar by distance, and it was the longest race of the year. 1 hour, 50 minutes and 20 seconds was the longest race this year at the Belgian Grand Prix. 1 hour, 50 minutes and 20 seconds of absolute boredom. My worst race of the year, the Belgian Grand Prix, and it was the longest race of the year. Oh, dearie me. Well done to those of you who got it correct. If you didn't use Google, well done to you. If you did use Google, shame on you. I make every race pretty long. Is that a compliment, Anne? Is that a compliment? You love the commentary, though. To be honest with you, it is, as I said, there have only been a couple of times this year when it's been a bit of a chore to get through the commentary. And those two were Japan and Belgium. Those are the only, they were the two that really, even Monaco. Monaco was a lot easier because you had the whole strategies going on. But those two were quite difficult because they were one-stop races, and even I was like, I'm struggling to find areas to talk about here as I'm going on. In my brain, I was thinking that. The commentary didn't do that, but yeah. Very rarely do I feel that, but thank you. Right, so onto my most underrated performance. So I want to stipulate here what I mean by underrated, because many people have different like understandings and interpretations of what underrated is. So how I'm interpreting my most underrated performance are performances that did not get, I don't think, got the recognition that they deserved. I think, and we'll pinpoint on some of those, I think there are some performances this year that were maybe like one-off performances that you may think were underrated, but because of the car they were in. But I think they got the recognition they deserve. So as an example, the one that comes to mind where I think many of you will think was an underrated performance is Fernando Alonso in Hungary, where he finished P5. He's not on this list because I think he got the recognition he deserved for that performance. I remember people online talking about it in interviews and so forth. So that's what I mean. These are performances that I think people have overlooked this year, and they deserve more recognition. And the first of those is Pierre Gasly. P6 in the British Grand Prix. Yes, Pierre Gasly, who was in the Alpine that one side of the garage failed to score a single point all year, finished the team dead last in the Constructors' Championship, finished P6 in the British Grand Prix. He qualified P10. Unbelievable drive by Pierre Gasly. I went back and looked at it as well, and he did make overtakes out on track. He, like Nico Hülkenberg, kept his car pointing forward and excelled at Silverstone as he always does in these treacherous conditions. Exactly, JT. When did he finish P6? This is what this subject, this category is all about. The most underrated performance. Pierre Gasly in an Alpine finished P6 in the British Grand Prix. Unbelievable performance by him, and thoroughly deserving to be in this category. And look, I actually really rate Pierre Gasly. I think he's a great driver. I think he's a driver that I would like to see have another opportunity in a front-running car. Whether he'll ever get that opportunity, I don't know. But I really hope one day he does, because I think he is a top driver. And, yeah, a lot of what he did this year in Alpine definitely did go under the radar. The amount of times this guy got that Alpine into Q3 was just unbelievable. Shouldn't have been there, but he did. So, first nomination is Pierre Gasly, P6 at the British Grand Prix. My second nomination is Liam Lawson, P6 at the Austrian Grand Prix. This was a tremendous drive. Him and Fernando Alonso did a one-stop in this race, but Liam Lawson showcased brilliant defensive driving. It didn't really get the TV coverage that it deserved. And I don't think he got any TV coverage, to be honest with you. But he defended valiantly against Fernando Alonso throughout. A driver who Alonso does not like. He doesn't like Lawson. They've collided, well, they've had coming togethers off the track before. And he did brilliantly. He did absolutely brilliant. And remember, Austria is a place you can overtake as well. And I think it was a great drive from him. There was a couple of times this year where Liam Lawson showcased his tyre management and his car positioning and being a tough driver to overtake. And this was one of them. And I think it started a good run of form for Liam Lawson. And again, another nomination is Liam Lawson. P5, Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Qualified P3 and held up Yuki Tsunoda, a good Yuki Tsunoda, bearing in mind. He held up Lando Norris, and I think this is one where, like, it was on a great... What was his run of form at this time? What was his run of form? I think rightfully so, all the plaudits went to the reason why this is underrated is because all the plaudits, yes, the qualifying went to him, but the plaudits went to Carlos Sainz for getting a podium in the Williams. It went to Max Verstappen for winning, and the focus was all on Oscar Piastri and Lando unable to make any more should have made more points advantage on his teammate. But people were forgetting Liam Lawson finished P5 ahead of Yuki and Lando, holding those two drivers up. We know, of course, it eventually became a bit difficult to overtake at Baku, but he did so with a great strategy and great driving and positional driving. So just looking at the drivers, and Lawson, so Austria was 8 points, and then yeah, Azerbaijan was a high of 10 points. So those are two performances that really went under the radar for me. And my fourth nomination is Alex Albon. And I think Alex Albon's performance this season has been, for the most part, overlooked. Because Carlos Sainz has ended the year very strong. Very strong. 2 podiums. But I went back and looked at Albon's performances. And his season is very much split into thirds. Because for 2/3 of this season, he performed brilliantly. Multiple P5s, multiple point scoring positions. He had a run of DNFs, 3 DNFs in a row, Alex Albon, where he DNF'd in Spain, Canada, Austria, all through mechanical failures. Williams were going through an issue with their cooling, with the engine cooling in the middle of the season, and they had to sacrifice some performance to ensure that their engines stopped blowing up. And Alex, if he didn't have those 3 DNFs in a row, the mechanical DNFs in a row, could have scored even more points and finished further ahead of his teammates. But he finished P5 in Australia. He finished P5 in Miami, Imola, Netherlands. And it was only the last 8 races of the year, from Azerbaijan to the end of the year, where he scored points once, which was in the US Grand Prix, that he clearly struggled. And I don't know why he struggled. Maybe the car moved away from him, or those tracks moved away from his comfortable nature, and Carlos Sainz finally got on top of the car. But I think people were overlooking Alex's overall performance this year, and Imola is one that stands out to me, and I don't think it got enough recognition at the time, because he was battling the Ferraris. He battled Charles Leclerc. He forced Charles to force him off track, and he took that position back, and Imola was an unbelievable drive from him. He finished P5. He finished just behind Lewis Hamilton, and ahead of Charles Leclerc, ahead of George Russell, and I think it was top-notch from him, and deserves more recognition. And I think overall, Alex Albon's season deserves more recognition. I think recency bias and the 2 podiums, which were brilliant by Carlos Sainz and deserve, obviously, plaudits, but I think Alex's season as an overall needs to be applauded. Yes, if only he could have finished the season stronger, but still, a positive season for him, and yeah, a strong pairing heading into 2026. None of these drivers are Isaac Hadjar. Well, the reason why I haven't included Isaac Hadjar, as I said, underrated performances, is because I think Hadjar got as I said before, my definition and my interpretation of underrated are performances that these drivers and these performances didn't get the recognition they deserved. I think every time Hadjar drove well, he got the plaudits. I think every rookie got the plaudits they deserve when they drove well, because they're a rookie. And it was quite difficult to kind of go back and think about, okay, which performances can I think of but didn't get the recognition? And they're the ones that came to mind. Liam Lawson is on there twice, and I'm trying to think of any others. I don't know if anyone else has got any performances that come to mind, but these are the ones that stuck out to me. Right, on to my winner of the most underrated performance of 2025. And it goes to Pierre Gasly at the British Grand Prix. P6 at the British Grand Prix. I mean, unbelievable. Should have got more recognition at the time. In the context of the whole season as well, where Alpine have just been nowhere, finished dead last. Brilliant performance by him. Absolutely brilliant performance by Pierre Gasly. And I think is definitely the most underrated driver performance of the year. On to our most dramatic moment of the year. Oh, we're nearing the end, guys. We're nearing the end. Most dramatic moment of the year. Both McLarens crash at the US Grand Prix in the sprint race. How dramatic was this? Of course, Max Verstappen overall eventually making up 20... Oh, how many points did he make up? I can't remember how many points he made up. It was 20... It was a lot of points, wasn't it? It was over 20 points that he made up in this race over Oscar Piastri, or over this weekend. Over Oscar Piastri. What a moment it was. Dramatic moment. We knew at least it was going to happen at some point throughout this season. And yeah, Oscar Piastri trying to do the cutback on his teammate. It was dramatic but avoidable. Of course, all of these moments were avoidable. All of these moments. But it was very dramatic and a big turning point in the season of Max Verstappen being able to close down that gap on the championship lead. Our second nomination for most dramatic moment of 2025 is, of course, the McLaren disqualification at the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Wow. I mean, if I am Lando, and I still can't understand why McLaren took the risk to run the car as low as they did. Like, you can come up with all the excuses in the world. Oh, we only had a limited amount of practice running. There was wet conditions and so forth. Well, yeah. All other 9 teams were able to run their car at a sufficient height and not get disqualified. So you were the only one. And there was no need to take the risk. Yes, you might want to win the race, or you might want to finish second or third or whatever, finish on the podium. But considering the advantage you had in the Drivers' Championship at that point, Lando could have afforded to finish in the top 5 and he'd still have a comfortable lead heading into Qatar and Abu Dhabi. So yeah, that was an absolutely dramatic moment in the championship, and it was shocking a bit. I agree. Hey Dan, good to see you, mate. Hope you're good. Our next dramatic moment was Verstappen sees red and drives into George Russell. I've touched upon this already, but yes, massively dramatic given it was Max Verstappen. The context of the whole Drivers' Championship and how the race unfolded, and just unforgivable, and should have been disqualified. I stand by that. Should have been disqualified. The FIA was scared to do so. They should have used that opportunity to set a precedent, but this is not acceptable and should never be acceptable. Max has since come out and said that, basically admitted that what he did was wrong, and that he did intentionally drive into George Russell. Yeah, there we go. And another dramatic moment is Antonelli crashed into Verstappen on lap 1 Austrian Grand Prix. This was dramatic, wasn't it? Massively dramatic, because Max has never been on the end of something like this before. And for it to happen on the first lap at the home of Red Bull as well, we knew how important this was going to be in the overall championship standings. Many, myself included, said at the time, like, to lose 25 points like that over even McLaren driver was going to be devastating to his championship hopes, if he had any. And that was, yeah, very dramatic. Very, very dramatic. And my winner of the most dramatic moment of 2025 is the McLaren disqualification, double disqualification at the Las Vegas Grand Prix. I don't think there's a more dramatic moment. I really don't. They're all worthy of being hence nominated, hence why they're there. But this ensured pretty much that the Drivers' Championship was going to go to the end of the season. It should have been wrapped up for Lando Norris. It should have, at minimum, been between the two McLaren drivers, but it wasn't. They allowed Max Verstappen back into the fold, back into the picture because of this disqualification. And then we know off the back of this, the pit stop balls up in Qatar. That could have been on there, a dramatic moment as well, but I think those two previous McLaren moments were more dramatic. So, what about the groundhog getting ended on the track? Not quite dramatic. On to our most embarrassing moments. Our most embarrassing moments of 2025, guys, eh? First is Carlos Sainz crashing under the safety car in lap 1. Not a good way to start your Williams career. It was end of lap 1. I know he made excuses. That, the revs really spiked and so forth. Well, yeah, that's what happens when you're applying throttle on a painted line with your rear wheel fully on it. The wheel spins up, the torque spins up, the rev spins up. Anyone who's driven any sort of car knows that's the case. And look, it's an easy mistake, but it's still a driver who is experienced to crash out in that manner under safety car conditions at the first race of the season. So there's too many to list in relation to the most embarrassing moments. There is. And I've tried to limit these down to like 4 or something. So second is something we've already mentioned this season, already in these awards, is Gabriel Bortoletto's crash at the Vegas Grand Prix. I mean, he went flying in there, absolutely flying. If no one has seen the onboard footage of not Bortoletto, but from Colapinto's vantage point, it shows how quickly and how misjudged Bortoletto has gone into this corner and this race start. It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. He went bowling and got a strike 100%. I bet many of you forgot about this one. Behrman crashing, coming into the pit lane under red flag conditions. This was wild. Completely unnecessary, and I don't know what was going through his head. He got 4 penalty points for it, Dan. Yeah. He got 4 penalty points. Just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. He's 2 penalty points away. He got 10 penalty points this year. He got 4 for the overtaking under red flag conditions in Monaco. He got 4 for this, and then he got 2 for supposedly forcing Carlos Sainz off of the track in Monza, which Sainz himself said he didn't agree with. So yeah, that's something that I think many people forgot about. And this is actually my last nomination because I had to kind of limit it down to 4, and these were the 4 that really stuck out in my mind. I'm sure there's more this year, but these are the 4 that I think are most worthy. And look, Hadjar crashed on the formation lap in the first F1 race. His first F1 race. It was a sad moment, and he thankfully recovered well from this. But this is if you're in Hadjar's position, you would feel embarrassed. Like, that is a massively embarrassing moment for you. That you have crashed. Not just on the first racing lap. No, you've crashed at the first corner on the formation lap. Poor guy indeed. But it is embarrassing. And that's why it led to tears for Hadjar. And I feel sorry for him, but at the same time, I've had embarrassing moments in my life. And yeah, you are on the verge of tears, and sometimes there are tears that come out. And that's exactly what Hadjar had there, is that he was embarrassed by the fact that he'd made his whole racing career had led up to this moment, and he hasn't even been able to start the race. Now, thankfully for him, he had the mental fortitude to recover from this, and look, he's my rookie of the year, and he's many people's rookie of the year, and he's now earned himself a promotion to Red Bull, which is phenomenal considering how his season started. But yeah. Embarrassing. I would also add Ferrari constantly telling Lewis to lift and coast throughout. Yeah, there's many honourable mentions. Ferrari season as a whole, the embarrassing communication between him, Lewis Hamilton, and his engineer. Papaya rules were embarrassing. We can pinpoint the FIA at many points this season were embarrassing. But I tried to pinpoint it to particular driver moments of this year. And my award for most embarrassing moments of 2025, driver-wise, is not yet done. Because I had one more that I forgot I put in. Jack Doohan leaves the DRS open and crashes in FP2 at Suzuka. Oh my God, I forgot this was here. And many of you probably forgot about this as well. Do you remember this one? He tested this out in the simulator because the DRS closes one of two ways. Either you manually shut it, press the button again, or you lift off the throttle and start applying the brake. That's how it happens. Now into Suzuka, because the first corner, the entry speed, the nature of it, you're entering the braking into turn one. You already start. You're still full speed as you're turning the wheel into the corner. The braking doesn't happen until you're not braking in a straight line. And he tried this out in the sim. I've tried it out in the sim. I think many of us have tried it out in the sim, especially when the F1 car first came out on iRacing. And you very quickly realised, oh, yeah, I need to manually close the DRS before I head into the braking zone, because that happens. And he did the real-life version of it. So I can't imagine too many drivers crashed 4 times at the same track this year. Yeah, so he crashed in Super Formula multiple times, didn't he, recently? So, so can you imagine doing that for real? It was, I can't, Anne. I really can't. And it was a massive crash, absolutely massive crash, and an embarrassing moment for him as well. Embarrassing moment. So now onto my award, winner of the most embarrassing driver moment of 2025. It is unfortunately awarded to Isaac Hadjar. I really don't think there is a more embarrassing moment than crashing on the first corner of the formation lap of your first ever F1 race. And I think I tried to put myself in any of the drivers' positions here, and that would come out on top of my list of if I was in any of their positions. Because that's just something that is just always going to live with me. Now, thankfully, I've been able to get over that. And as we've touched upon, Isaac's had a brilliant year, and he's now been promoted to to Red Bull. And he had a podium, and he finished just outside the top 10 in the driver standings and so forth. And he recovered brilliantly from this. But no one wants to start their F1 career like that. No one, absolutely no one, and it is embarrassing. But well done for him for getting back up and recovering well from it. So, quiz time! Our last question of the day. What's the last question? So, I'll do options for you here, guys. I'll do options. What's that? I think Behrman, since on formation lap, you have Cole Tyson swerving to warm them up. Ollie was just going a straight line. Isaac will be one to watch next season for sure, yeah. So, there's a few options here, and How many pit stops total were there in 2025? How many pit stops total were there in 2025? I'll tell you the exact afterwards. Were there 500 plus pit stops? Were there 600 plus pit stops? Were there 700 plus pit stops? Or were there 800 plus pit stops? Get your votes in, guys. Let me know what you think. Get your votes in. Get your votes in, guys. Taco. Hey, Taco. Good to see you, mates. 790 you're going for. Anything above lots is a guess for you. Come on. Few more votes. Few more votes. Few more votes. Get over. Couple more. How many pit stops total were there in 2025? Quick maths for you all. I was surprised. Was I surprised? I don't know. I haven't really done the maths, to be honest with you. I mean, if we were to do the maths, let's just say. So 20 says 10 teams, right? 10 teams times 2 cars. It's 20 cars, right? It's 20 cars times 2 is 40. So that's 40 pit stops per race. Let's say you do that. I know that there wasn't. And if you times that by 24, that's 960. If every race was a 2-stop. Now I know that's not the case, and every car made 2 pit stops. So it is obviously less than that. Hence why I've got obviously 800 plus there. And there was lots of 1-stops this year, wasn't there? Unfortunately. Right, I'm going to end the poll. So most of you think 600 plus out of those options. The total amount of pit stops this year was 720 pit stops this year. The Spanish Grand Prix had the most amount of pit stops in a single race, with 53 in total. So it's less than 960 because we had a number of 1-stop races this year. You have to remember drivers crashed out as well. So if you selected 700 plus, that range, then you was correct. 720. So, yeah, we had too many 1-stop races this year, didn't we, unfortunately? Really need to up their game next year. But that's the last of the quiz questions. I think that's the last of the quiz questions. So thank you, guys. Just a little bit of fun in between these awards here. We are approaching the end of these awards. Only a couple of more categories to go. And then I'm going to be welcoming in the new year with the missus. The most feel-good moment of 2025, guys. The most feel-good moment of 2025. The first. I know it's a long way away ago now, but Lewis Hamilton's sprint pole and win at the Chinese Grand Prix. Oh my God, when it all looked so rosy, so promising for Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari career. Only the second race weekend of the season, and Lewis stands not quite on the top step because it's a sprint race, but he qualifies on sprint pole and wins from start to finish. If only the rest of the season was like that. Only the rest of the season was like that. But yeah, that was a feel-good moment from a Lewis Hamilton fan, and I think from many others as well. Ferrari fans for sure. It was a what if? What can this season maybe be for us? And who knew? That afternoon, that very afternoon, and the next day, it would all be flipped on its head. Hey, Mike, good to see you, mate. Happy New Year, Taco. On vacation right now, so couldn't stop in earlier. No worries, mate. No worries. I've been very quiet through December, as I said. Lots of illness has been making its way through the Stuffeyy household. The missus has got ill again right now, hence why we're staying in New Year's and I'm doing this stream. And yeah, it's been a busy December as all for us. Me and the missus were very busy on work up until we broke up, and then seeing family and so forth. It's been a bit non-stop, so... Right, so our next Feel Good Moment nomination for 2025 is, of course, Nico Hülkenberg. First career podium. We all cheered when he crossed the line, didn't we? We all cheered across the line. Big, big high moment for 2025. Lando Norris. Our next nomination for Feel Good Moment of the year is Lando Norris wins the World Drivers' Championship. I think personally this was a feel-good moment. I know if you're a Max Verstappen fan, it is not a feel-good moment for you, or an Oscar Piastri fan. However, the reason why this is a feel-good moment is because I said throughout this season, one of the reasons I would like to see Lando win is because I think he has received an unnecessary amount of hate online. And it's been quite nice subsequently to watch those haters try and belittle his championship win. And for those of you that have been watching F1 for many a year, not always the best driver throughout the season wins the championship. That's not how F1 works. Sometimes that's the same with any sport. The best player doesn't always win. And I just think for him to finally get this across the line, considering as well, I think a lot of credit has to go to his second half of the season where he really turned things but in a positive way for himself mentally, and his performances out on track and how he approached the championship and collected points that would have mattered in the end. But I think how his team tried their very best to take the championship away from him. I think after that, after what happened in Vegas, after what happened in Qatar, I think it was well deserved that he was able to cross the line after his team making it very difficult for him to win the World Drivers' Championship. So exactly, Andy, exactly. And and this is the thing. This is what many have also said as well, is that many people have only started watching F1 in the last decade. If you've only watched F1 since 2017, you've only ever seen 2 drivers world champions, and they are arguably 2 of the greatest drivers of all time, in Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. You have to go back to 2016, where Nico Rosberg won the drivers' title, for someone other than those 2 to win the drivers' championship. And Lando is the first driver since Nico Rosberg, since other than Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, to win the title. So, and for many, they've only experienced that level of performance of those 2 drivers, and that's not always the case. And I'm not sitting here stating that Lando was at the level of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen at any point in their drivers' championship wins, but that's not to say that he can't go on to do that in the future. And ultimately, he won't care because he's won a World Drivers' Championship. So, right, our next feel-good moment of the year. He won my unfortunate award of most embarrassing moment of the year, which was going out on a formation lap at Australia, his first ever F1 race, Isaac Hadjar. But him getting his first F1 podium in Zandvoort, after how the season started for him. He'd been on an upward trajectory since then anyway. He was performing very well. But to get a podium, of course, with the assistance of Lando Norris's DNF with his engine failure. But he qualified P4. He held off Charles Leclerc throughout the race. He held off George Russell throughout the race on pace alone. And he comfortably finished P3. And what a feel-good moment it was to see Hadjar up on that top step. Of course, he ended up breaking that trophy in the end, but put a smile on my face and many others as well. And I think we was all very happy to see him, considering how his F1 career started, to see him get his first podium in F1 in his very first season. So, those are my nominations. I can't think of many others. Maybe you guys do have some. But I feel like those are the ones that really do stand out. And my winner, worthy of my most feel-good moment of the 2025 season, was Nico Hülkenberg's first career podium. I don't think there was anyone in the world of F1, even Lewis Hamilton fans, who wanted Lewis to get a podium in Ferrari at Silverstone. I don't think there was anyone that wasn't happy for Nico Hülkenberg to get his first career podium this year. I mean, I was so happy for him. I think everyone was, and I think it overwhelmingly is the most feel-good moment of the year. More so than if you're a Lando Norris fan, with him winning his World Drivers title. Like, that was just, it's one of those moments where we all come together as fans and we all just go, yeah, that was bloody brilliant. What a moment. He was 16 when Hulk made his F1 debut and 32 when he finally got his podium. Oof, that's how long it's been. And that, guys, is our final award of the night of 2025, ending it on a high. That is a summary there of your winners for this evening for every category, if you have just tuned in or you're watching this back. Yeah, there we go. What a season. I don't think it's the best season we've ever had in F1. I'm very thankful that we got a Drivers' World Title Championship that went down to the last race of the season. But yeah, thankfully we head into a new set of regulations where hopefully we have a very topsy-turvy season. That's my prediction. But yeah, some high moments, some low moments from this year. But personally, from a personal standpoint, the whole of this season has been a high. The channel has massively grown. And yeah, I'm thoroughly looking forward to what 2026 has in store for the channel, and thoroughly looking forward to commentating and just covering the season as a whole next year. Who do I think, Anne, would love a P3? Hulk or Lewis? Hulk every time. Hulk every time. I think Lewis, of course, wants a podium, but ultimately Lewis wants to win races. He's a winner. Podium's nice, but very quickly you're like, oh, I want to stand on the top step, not on P3. Whereas, of course, Lewis is in the Ferrari and Hulk is in a stake F1. So there's also that context as well. But yeah, guys, that is it. That is it for this evening. We've been live for a good few hours now, nearly 2.5 hours. I'm going to end it there. I'm going to just over an hour now until we welcome in 2026 here in the UK. For those of you who have already celebrated the new year, Happy New Year to you. Of course, those who are a little bit behind, hope you enjoy it wherever you are and whatever you are doing. We'll be live in the new year for some F1 related content and actually some sim racing content as well. Haven't had much of an opportunity to fire up the steering wheel and pedals, but we will do in the next few weeks. And yeah, not long until we have testing. So we have the first livery reveals in January, which we'll be covering. Then we have the first private test at the end of Jan, which we won't be able to cover because it's private. And then I will be live for the two public tests that are in February. So you can put me on in the background, and yeah, we'll chill on those days when public testing is going on. 150k subs next year? I'd love to, Anne. Yeah, I mean, my aim is to double my subscriber count every year. That'd be amazing if we can do that. I know it's a tall order. It always is a tall order. But we did that this year. We did that last year. And hopefully we could do it next year. My aim is to get that silver play button that can go right here, that 100k, 100,000 subs. But as long as the channel's heading in the right direction, that's all I can ask for. You guys are enjoying the content, and yeah, I'm excited to see what 2026 has for us. Thanks, Andy, man. Definitely, mate. Definitely. I'm hoping to. I see it's Road America this week, so I'm hoping to maybe hop on this weekend before I go back to work to get a couple of Super Formula races in. But we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, have a lovely, lovely rest of your new year, or of 2025, as I said, wherever you are. Or enjoy the start of 2026, guys. And if you're watching this back, I hope this is some good New Year content for you. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my nominations, my winners in the comments below. If you have any other suggestions, any of those that I've missed. But these are the ones that stood out to me this year. It's been a very long season. We've got another long season ahead of us next year as well. So, yeah, it's going to be getting up and running very quickly. January, before we know it, I think the first livery reveal this year is second week of January, if my memory serves me correctly. I think it might be Alpine. So, yeah, we're going to be getting our first looks. Will we get our first looks? Who's going to reveal? I guess that's the question. Who's going to reveal their true 2026 car with the livery reveals? Normally it's on the concepts that they get given, the models from the FIA. I wonder if we'll see any of the teams actually unveil their first iteration of their 2026 cars. But we're going to get a look at those in Jan for sure with that first private test. But yeah, take any rumours and news that you hear until now, until that first test, with a pinch of salt. After the first test, then you can start taking a bit more stock and interest in the actual reports that are coming out from that private test, because that will be the first time cars will actually be out on track, out of the wind tunnel, out of the simulator. But yeah, until then, guys, thank you for tuning in as always. Hit the like and subscribe button. Happy New Year one last time, and we'll see you in 2026. Bye!